Yes, Rama sir, we can start.
Good morning. So I think we need to acknowledge yesterday's was really a fruitful session. And now we are coming to the second and last session, today's one. So we are still waiting for the participant. By the time we have in our midst Professor Kiran Bhajan. So we will proceed with the agenda. We're inviting him for his delivery as guest speaker. I will invite Dr. Ramjon to just briefly introduce Professor Bhajan.
Good morning, Mumbai.
Good morning. Very good morning.
Good morning, Mauritius. Colleagues, Professor Rama, Director MIE Online, and other colleagues, all protocol observe. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Dr. Kiran Bhajan, Director of Tertiary Education, Scientific Research of the Ministry. So he is here today. It's an enormous pleasure to have him among us today for his keynote address. And he has his title, something which is very at heart in the Mauritian context and also internationally, the STEM education. Professor Dr. Kiran Bhajan earned his Bachelor of Civil Engineering from the famous Indian Institute of Technology of Kanpur in 1997, followed by academic diversification with a Bachelor of Law from the University of London in 2014, and a Master of Business Administration from the University of Mauritius in 2007. He also earned a Project Management Professional Certification from the Project Management Institute of the US in 2012, and holds a PhD in Higher Education Governance from Murdoch University, Australia in 2023. He has held various positions such as Vice Chancellor of Amity University in Mauritius, and he's been Director General of the University of Technology Mauritius. Currently, he is, as I said in my earlier statement, he is serving as the Director of Tertiary Education, Scientific Research, and scientific research at the Ministry of Education. So, Kiran, may I allow myself to tell you, or to call you Kiran? Over to you.
Thank you.
You will continue.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here today. Maybe I would just like some help to share this PowerPoint. So good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here this morning, and thank you to MIE for this invitation. The theme that I've been requested to present today is the policy perspective from the higher education sector on how do we promote STEM. And therefore, this presentation is called the Strategic Framework to Promote STEM from a Higher Education Policy Perspective. Well, before we start, or maybe as the first slide, what is important to know is what do we understand by STEM and why is it so important? There has been, over the last current years, a debate already started. Should it be STEM? science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or should we add arts in there to make it STEAM? I've kept it as STEM, but you would understand that when I'm talking in the broader sense of the topic. Why is it important? Even more so now than a couple of years back, because the world, all of us included, have just come out of a pandemic, a global pandemic, which has fast forwarded the introduction of technology in a number of sectors, including the one in which we work, education sector. And this has seen its impact not just in terms of delivery, where in the times of the lockdowns, universities and training institutions and schools were forced to shift overnight to online mode, catalyzing what I usually call crisis online courses more than online courses itself. So that's the importance of it for us, that there has been a fast forwarding of STEM into our life. And this is something which is not just about Mauritius, which is not just about India or Mumbai. It is something which is global. And all of us now, and this conference is very much an example of it, all of us are connected wherever we are, irrespective of time zone, without the need, though it might not always be good, but without the need to travel, thus maybe helping to reduce our own carbon footprint. I will just give you a brief glimpse, because I had to focus on the Mauritian perspective, a quick glimpse of the current status of STEM from the Mauritian perspective from higher education. From the statistics that we have, and this is something which is, you would tell me, aligned with the global trends, we have both a declining trend, but with more boys, male than female students studying STEM in Mauritius. And these are the official data from the Higher Education Commission over the last 10 years, 2014 to 2023. This is as per the trend. There's nothing much we can do about this. But is there any silver lining when we start delving in a little bit deeper into the topic? If we look at the numbers for information technology, can we hide the stop screen there? Whatever it's happening.
ये तो कल गए थे, तुम वहां का है? आज भी है ना? गए?
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. All right. So if I look at the statistics, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, if I look at the statistics, I think for information technology, we are very much aligned with global trends. That is, more boys, more male than female students. Same thing happened when I look at engineering, with very, very much more boys than girls currently in our own public and private higher education institutions in Mauritius. Of course, you would have guessed the blue lines represent the boys, the pink one, the girls, and the black one, the total. I wanted to change, but then I didn't want to be so anti-conformist this morning. That's IT and engineering. But when we start looking at medicine, the trend suddenly changes. And I think Mauritius must be one of the only, or one of the very few countries which has this reverse trend. In medicine, currently, we have more girls than boys studying in our own local institutions. When you look at, I'm sorry, I can't see the title that I've written out there, but when we look at, can we lower this slightly? Just give me a second, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. I want this to go out. Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Full
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, that's better. That's all right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that will make it easier for me to have a look. When we look at medicine, like I was saying, there's more girls than boys that are currently studying in Mauritius. And health sciences, the trend is still there and increased now. Even more girls than boys. When we look at mathematics, I was surprised when I was building this graph yesterday. Once again, we have more female students than male one in Mauritius studying mathematics. I checked for science, and the trend is still the same, which leads me to suggest that currently, except for the hardcore STEM subjects, engineering and IT, most of the other sectors are being driven by a women population of students. I did the same thing for ocean studies, which is thought to be a little bit difficult, a little bit harsh. And yet again, the number of female students is still outnumbering the number of male students. Little thing to remember here, little red flag, is that Mauritius is surrounded by oceans. Yet we only started our courses in ocean studies in 2016. And the numbers currently are still very, very low to promote any kind of sustainable industry in ocean studies. So what does all of this tell us? All of this right now is telling us that there is a market, that there is no, I would not say, we do not even have to ask for measures of gender parity, because usually gender parity has been asked when we have lesser women than men in studying. Here in Mauritius, we are very much in reverse. I've done a little bit of playing around with the numbers yesterday, and of course, if I remove engineering and IT from the lot, everywhere it is the girls leading in terms of participation in our science subjects. So some of the challenges, nonetheless, that have been identified from the sector are: one, resource limitations, and resource limitations are plenty. The first one that, of course, is coming to our mind is in terms of logistics, in terms of hardware, in terms of software, in terms of connectivity. But we have other resource limitation, and that is, unfortunately, maybe linked with this high number of female students studying. Because we've also realized, and we've also had studies to prove this, that despite a high number of women studying science, they do not then join the labor market into the scientific field. They use this either to get a job as a teacher, no offense to any teacher, of course, or educator, but they slowly divert from this main route of being a scientist and do something else, and use this scientific background that they have as a stepping stone into something else. We've done a research as well at the level of the ministry with some private institutions, and realized that a good 30 to 40% of people working in banks in Mauritius have a science degree. Which was quite unexpected, but the bank says they still prefer the science employees because of the way that they think. I mean, I think that's to be taken as a compliment for us. The second, the second challenge that we have is in terms of teacher training. And I wanted to emphasize this, given that I'm talking here this morning at the Mauritius Institute of Education, because we have been putting in the best effort in training students and in training students, teachers, teachers, the right way about how science should be taught, how science should be, explained to kids. But then there is no follow-up really about whether they are effectively applying those pedagogies once they reach their work, the place of work. Again, from studies we have had, and from different discussions and interactions we've had with educators around the island, we have realized that the teachers do not apply what they have been taught at the MIE, for example, because they have to abide by what they said. They had to abide by the organization culture within the place where they are. And they have to abide by the restricted resources that they have, which means even though they were imparted the right techniques or the right pedagogy, they are no longer applying it for a variety of reasons. And third, and that's more from the student perspective, a perception issue. And here I think the how do I call that? The perception is both real and created. Real because some students on their own, when they open a physics book or a chemistry book, they are a little bit phased, thinking that this is too difficult. That's the real perception. And then there is an induced perception, because we've also had students coming to us from the career guidance perspective and saying, we thought physics was difficult because our teacher said you will not score high marks there. So don't do this, you will not score high marks. So we have now this internal enemy, if I can call it like this, where the educators who are supposed to be promoting STEM are now saying to students, don't do it. And we need to understand maybe, and this is something worth for MIE to do some further studies and understand, why is this happening? Is this happening because they are demotivated from the lack of resources? Are they demotivated by the lack of salary attached to a science background qualification? Are they demotivated because there is too much work? We really don't know. I'm just putting up questions out there, but this is something, again, for us to investigate. Why is there this induced perception, this induced behavior in our students to say, do not take up STEM subjects? We've also, and that is at the level of the ministry, taken the step of approaching STEM from an interdisciplinary perspective. What I mean by this is, how do we ensure that students from the younger age can have wider access, or at least being in touch with STEM subjects? One thing I think I need to compliment the MIE is that nowadays what we are seeing, even in the books that you are publishing, in the French books, for example, still talk about scientific topics in there. Even the English language books also speaks about dinosaurs or speaks about the Earth rotation. So the whole purpose is, in an, how do you call that? I would have said in an incognito way, we are still promoting science. And this is something which is, we believe, good. Again, why? Because we need to get the students engaged as early as possible, because there's a need to have this curiosity in our younger kids awake and kept alive. I always take an example when I talk to friends of when I'm driving, usually in the morning, from the south towards the north of Mauritius, and my son is sitting at the back, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, when we're going there, we see the sun on the right, on the east, and sometimes the moon on the west. And he often asks me this question. I mean, not often. He used to ask me this question once or twice before I explain. He says, we are in daytime. It is 7 a.m. How can I see both the sun and the moon at the same time? And that I took this as an opportunity to explain the whole concept of rotation, of one day, the sun, the earth rotating around the sun and the moon rotating around, and it's a concept that comes out from a curiosity. And this is something that we should inculcate and nurture, I think, in our kids. But along with this, if we want to have STEM as a way forward, there is also a need for these students, these kids, to be made aware of real life application of STEM. And here, I think one of the shortcomings that we've been having is we can no longer do real practicals. And I was so attracted by this photo of this young boy there that I thought I'll put it up, because we no longer do this very much in Mauritius nowadays. We no longer have them try and put fire to something and then we extinguish that fire. There's nothing like that. It's everything alternative to practical. And there's no real sense of what is happening. Nobody is touching a battery for real and having a little spark and they know electricity is flowing. And we're telling them, if you touch, you will have electricity, but they don't know. They can't feel it. And unless you feel, you will not understand, isn't it? And with all of this, ladies and gentlemen, comes our, and why I'm here, what is the role of higher education institutions in promoting STEM? Can we do anything, or should we do anything? Or on the contrary, should we say, I'm sorry, I am only taking these students at the end of the secondary school, and by that time it's too late, so I can't do much about it. And this is why I'm here, because I'm advocating for a number of years now to all our higher education institutions to engage into the educational landscape from across the spectrum, from the pre-primary to the higher education. You would recall that Mauritius hosted the ADA, the Association for the Development of Education in Africa conference in Mauritius 2 years back. And one of the themes of that conference was higher education for basic education. Because the whole principle behind is how can whatever is happening at higher education be used to, I'm not getting the right word, inspire, be used to inspire students at from the pre-primary level. Because, and this is where the beauty of it is, higher education is where we believe that most of the aspects related to economic growth happens. Most of the things related to innovation, product development happens. So how can we take this and feed it back into the system and give out concrete examples for people to say, aha, this has been done because that person had a deep knowledge of STEM. And along the same line, once we can get higher education to be involved into what is happening at the lower level, then support in the curriculum development. Curriculum development, and this is a conversation we are having right now at the Ministry of Education. Curriculum development for primary and secondary is not a matter only for primary and secondary. Because if I need to do economic growth, if I want to have economic growth down the line, and if I need to have the right qualified students or graduates to do that, I need to catch them early. I need to put them on the right path of doing STEM from primary school, being interested in the topic, then aligning them into a direction where they want to do it at secondary. And it is only then that I will get the potential engineers or the potential physicists or the potential chemist at higher education. If I wait for them to come without putting in any effort, then I think it will be pointless. It will be too late for us. And similarly, we believe that, again, higher education can be of much help promoting the whole STEM education because it is the one that has the most contacts with industry, with stakeholders. It is much easier for a higher education institution in Mauritius, and I'm sure elsewhere, to have an outreach activity with society, talking with service organization, Rotary, Lions, whatever, and get to showcase what is STEM. And showcasing at that level, of course, you'll be showcasing to parents, but these parents might bring their kids. And these kids might be inspired by what you're showing. So basically what we want to say is, from my own perspective, higher education institution should be in a way helping themselves by getting engaged fully into promoting STEM from the pre-primary, primary level. That's the only way for us to have more and more, to create a feeder for ourselves. So with that kind of background, there is, of course, then this aspect, STEM education, but is STEM of any good for education? STEM education is where we're teaching isn't it? Our kids about science, about physics, about engineering, about mathematics. But can we use that for ourselves as instructors, as educators, as lecturers in our job? And this is where, again, I keep saying COVID was there. People are blaming it for a lot of things. But COVID also had a lot of silver linings to all the dark clouds. And one of them, which I think people should be thankful, is technology. And nowadays, technology integration. Yes, everybody is talking about ChatGPT. I was trying my best not to talk about it. But it should not be used only as a tool, or it should not be perceived only as a tool where some of our smarter students are using to shorten their time of doing assignments. How do we use technology to create material? How do we use technology to create content? Might not be the best content because you still need to check and have it peer reviewed. But how do you use technology to do other things? One of the aspects that we're using right now, that we're working on in a project at the level of the ministry, is using technology to predict and to help predict careers as one. And second, use technology to forecast what could be subjects in which students could be weak and where they would need support. So in a way, it is preempting subjects or areas in which students would require support and accordingly provide the support before the exams so that we support them and make sure that they understand and that they do not come back because they have missed a few marks here and there. So technology integration is one. We also know nowadays that the future of jobs is something which was very real. In a couple of years back, 2020, 2021, 22, people were talking of the future of jobs as if it was something, just like in the 90s, we were saying the year 2000 is going to be a big change in the world. It came, it is 24 years behind us now. Future of jobs is not far. It is maybe 2 years down the line. What are we doing about it? Knowing very well that most of the jobs that are on the market nowadays have a high dose of STEM subjects associated with it. And of course, I've put this line written informed citizens because informed citizenship, because all of us, whether we are in STEM, whether we are in pure banking, whether we are in something completely remote out of the engineering or of the STEM path, are touched in one way or the other by technology. And technology, the base of technology remains STEM. And we can't do away with that. I'll show you the report, one of the figures of the World Economic Report that came out, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020. 2020, yes, 2020. And the World Economic Report said that by 2025, which is next year, 40% of current workers will need a change of their core skills. Why? Because the core skills will all now be embedded with STEM subjects, with technology. It also said, the same report, that 50% of existing employees would require reskilling. Again, because whatever they knew, whatever they have been using to work over the years would soon be completely obsolete and they need to learn new things. And the new things are those associated with the outcome of STEM. There was a report again by this World Economic Forum, again in 2020, where they acknowledged that 47% of jobs are undergoing transformation, most of which because of the pandemic. And they said this transformation is mostly digital, and currently as of 2020, 23% of youngsters in UK lacked basic digital skills. I've put it in the Mauritian context, the African context. The same report said in Africa, only 1% of our graduates had coding skills. And we are saying that 50% of them will need reskilling soon. So just imagine the amount and the number of people that will have to be reskilled and the amount of reskilling required. I'll just quickly, for the sake of completeness, give you a couple of jobs that did not exist 10 years back. And you would realize that the jobs that did not exist 10 years back and that are here now are mostly related with STEM. Social media manager. I mean, 10, 20, 15 years back, there was no Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or I don't know, whatever it is, TikTok that people use nowadays. And all of these now require social media manager, and you would not know how to use it, how to handle all of these prompts or whatever dashboard in there, unless you have this scientific mind behind it. App developer. All of us have this little black box nowadays called a mobile phone, that black box. And it works because it's got a lot of, it's a smartphone, it's got a lot of app on there, and we need somebody to design those apps. And if you see the numbers, and I had this old number of 2015, in 2015, there was already 1.5 million apps available. That has more than doubled now 10 years later. Uber driver, driverless car engineer. We are not yet, I'm stressing on the yet, we are not yet allowing the driverless cars in Mauritius, but they're very much reality in a number of cities. And the driverless cars are not happening by magic. They're happening because there's hardcore science and engineering behind it. And if this is something that is going to spread, the knowledge of science, of STEM, is also expected to spread so that people can handle these kinds of activities. Cloud computing. I remember when the first term cloud, let's put our files on the cloud, came out, people were, looking at us strangely. Are you expecting us to take the bunch of files, throw them in the fire, they create a cloud and they will still go somewhere? No, of course not. We know it's not what it meant. But this is the reality of things nowadays. If any of us go on our Facebook account and start liking vacation in Jamaica today and tonight, by tomorrow morning in your mail, in your feed, on your feed, you will get hundreds of vacation feeds and stories coming to you, isn't it? Why? It can be used to our own advantage, but why? Because there is some dark, let me not say dark, some science behind it, which is analyzing data and seeing what are your preferences and therefore aligning to your preferences. This is again not by magic. This is happening because there is coding and machine learning behind. And machine learning is still being coded for the time being by humans. And we need these humans to be trained in STEM subjects. YouTube content creator. My son is 10 years old. A couple of years back, when I said, what do you want to be when you grow older? He said, I want to be Batman. Nowadays, he says, I want to be a YouTube content creator. I said, why? He says, no, because you get a lot of money from there. You can test, because he's 10, remember, you can test all the toys, people will watch and will pay you to watch. So let's see, I don't know what is going to be in a couple of more months, but this is the reality of things. Nowadays, people are getting money from creating videos on YouTube, and those videos are all attached with a number of technological tools to enhance, etc., etc. You cannot do this without having the basic knowledge of STEM, isn't it? Drone operator. I was in a committee a couple of weeks back. I think it's no longer private information. I can share it with you. There was a company in Mauritius who wanted to use drones to deliver parcels to your homes. And it has not gone through for other reasons, but the project has reached Mauritius. The project is very much happening in the bigger cities, not yet in Mauritius for other security aspects associated with it, but this is a reality. Drones are being used to deliver pizza, I heard, in many places. I'm yet to have one delivered to me on this, but it is happening. And this is something, again, deeply linked with our STEM subjects. And this is the graph that has been created by a website called Statistica, which is about what do the millennial want. And the millennial are the guys who are now about, or who have just joined our higher education sector and will be in the job market soon. And they are not the guys who would want to be staying in a job for 30, 40 years and then retire. No. If you tell them, come to my job, come work for me, I will give you 10 weeks of paternity leave. I'm saying paternity because I'm seeing a lot of gentlemen here. And because the government of Mauritius has already increased maternity leave from 14 weeks to 16 weeks. Do you think this is something that attracts the youngsters? No, it does not. Statistics, research have proved that they are not interested because they're not interested to have kids. So they are not bothered about the paternity or the maternity leave. They are interested by other things. And the other things are training and development, flexible working hours, cash bonus. And why is this important? This is important because you need the statistics, you need the engineering, you need the scientific analysis behind to understand what are the trends and accordingly align ourselves with those trends. We should no longer be talking of one job for life. It doesn't exist anymore. Jobs of the future. This again is a statistics that has been published by Forbes in 2021. And when you look at the list there, the only one that I think we could say is not, and that also marginally, is not related to pure science, is actuary. But actuary, I think even the actuary studies are called actuary science, if I'm not mistaken. That's the only one which I could think is not directly linked with any STEM subjects. Everything else, see, they need maths. See, nothing, none of them. All of them, and these are the jobs of the future, all of them associated with STEM, and yet we are saying STEM is not important. There is a the divide there, isn't it? And this is the divide that we need people to understand. And this understanding is where I think we are all here and we should all be working together. Just for the sake of completeness, I've also provided to you the future of jobs in Mauritius. And the future of jobs in Mauritius has been derived from a document called the List of Indicative Priority Field of Studies, which is published by the Mauritian Higher Education Commission. It is published every 2 years. So the last one was in 2021, and the other one will be published this year. And once again, all of these jobs of the future for Mauritius are linked with STEM subjects. All of them, whether even the one about agri-food, because the agri-food that we're talking now is the smart agriculture. I've taken the list. I can see some people in the audience saying, no, I'm not agreeing. I'm just taking the list and the one that were popping up as being most significant, just for you to have a glimpse of it.
Under postgraduate, I think.
So with all of this as our backdrop, with all of this as what is behind and what is motivating us, what do we do? How do we plan ahead? There has to be something, there has to be some kind of concerted effort to say, what is our strategy? If I use strategy as the broader term of it, in the broader sense, what is our strategy? How do we create this kind of passion, ignite this passion again for STEM? What is our strategy? One thing that is being done in Mauritius, at least, is talks have started. I should say this positively. Talks have started means consultations are ongoing for a STEM policy, a national STEM policy, but that should also then be accompanied by an implementation plan. Strategic goals have been set that we want our students to be more STEM oriented, because not because we love STEM, we do, but because when we look at the future of jobs, we need our population to be, I can no longer say IT literate nowadays. You know this. IT literate is dead. Now it is AI literate. Everybody should be aware of what's happening. Everybody should have an understanding of STEM. I would refer you, maybe I will share this with you, Professor Rama, on a report that was published by the World Bank, where they have, I think it was in April 2023, and they have defined the new set of competencies expected from students. And as the core set of competencies there, along with literacy and numeracy, was scientific awareness, was element like AI, knowledge of AI. So the basic knowledge, there was one other element called, if I remember well, fiscal and investment knowledge. This is now the core, what every one of us should know. And this is what the new kids on the blocks, the new kids in life should know as well. Strategic goals, therefore, align our population into this direction of being STEM aware, so that it makes life easier for them. And what are we doing in terms of strategies? Already started at the level of Mauritius. One, for example, we've established a number of scholarship schemes at the level of the Ministry of Education, promoting STEM subjects, promoting MPhil, PhD courses. Of course, you'll tell me MPhil, PhD could be in non-science subjects, but most of them are the one that we are promoting, and the one that are being taken up are from science subjects. We are also aware that when we talk of STEM, it does not only mean at higher education. And one of the ways that the Ministry of Education from Mauritius has taken this on board is by creating educational pathways. And the pathways have started as low down as grade 9, which is the end of our mandatory first cycle of education. And after grade 9, nowadays, students can go into something called the technology education stream, which gives them, those who are more inclined to it, a deeper dive into STEM at the early age of about 13, 14. And then instead of going the normal route of going through higher education, higher school certificate, HSC, they have another one which is called HSC Pro, which is again geared towards hands-on and practical and engineering-based curriculum. We are also promoting a lot of engagement with international bodies. This conference, for example, is one which is aligned with the vision of the government of promoting STEM and being aware that it cannot happen only within our borders. There is a need to go abroad, to go beyond, even though it is online today, but to go beyond and interact with others. But it should not stop there. Just like we talk about quality assurance, there is a need to close the loop. And closing the loop means whatever strategic goals, whatever actions, whatever strategies we are implementing, are they good enough? Are they meeting the need for which they have been set? And how are we assessing that? How are we ensuring this is happening? And how are we ensuring it in such a way that it cannot be disputed? Of course, it is by evidence-based, by having data-driven approach, and the data-driven then can be proof of whatever we're saying. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share with you a short strategic framework that is part of one of my work at the level of the ministry, where we've already designed a strategic framework for the promotion of STEM. So, and we had called it then the STEM strategy. And the STEM strategy is something which is still work in progress, but I'm happy to share it with you so that at least people are aware what is happening. And I'll be happy if there is any feedback on this or any way that people would like to suggest improvement. So what we said is that STEM is connected to education, of course, but it is also connected to research, and it is also connected to the industry. And that creates the first loop to ensure that STEM exists. Is this all? No, it is not. Then STEM also requires human resources. You cannot say I'm going to have a STEM strategy if I do not have the right people trained in STEM. And human resources will lead to innovation, and innovation will lead to finance, both in terms of producing, in terms of the output, but also, and it's a two-way arrow in terms of getting money to get my innovation happening. That's the core of this is the core of the framework, but it doesn't stop there, because we know there are more linkages than what I've shown here. The first one is here, that education needs funding, then that research needs funding, then that research and industry are linked by patenting, and that industry and human resources are linked by the human resource gap, isn't it? The talent gap. And talent gap is what either promotes or does not promote innovation. And that innovation is what drives industry. And that education should not be considered as a single, unit, but education must be understood to be primary, secondary, TVET, others, and all of them are still interlinked. And this brings me back to my original words that tertiary should be working for the lowest segment of the education sector as well. And that's not all again. If we want to promote STEM, then we need to have outreach. And outreach is a mixture of bringing in the education sector, the research sector, and industry, so that society at large benefit from it. And finally, the human resources is what drives our education, and finance is what drives our human resources. This should have been a spherical model, but I could not present the spherical model to you. I did not have the sufficient IT skills to turn this into a sphere. But this is the framework that we're working on. And we hope that this will be the backbone of the forthcoming science and technology, the National Science and Technology Strategy. Now, we have in mind a strategy. Why do we need this? Why do we need this? I believe there are three reasons for that. One is to educate, the second is to establish, and the third is to organize. What do we educate? We need to educate about the real world application of STEM. Too many people nowadays take it for granted about whatever they are having in front of them without understanding the deep science behind every little object that we have. And it is important to remind people that of whatever we take for granted nowadays, what is the science behind it? And highlight the economic benefits. One of the, for lack of a better word, I will say shortcoming. One of the shortcomings of science people is the reluctance to talk, or the reluctance to communicate, because they feel, I know what is in my head. I'm happy sitting in my little corner, doing my little research in the lab, publishing it, and people will look at it, will say, wow, and that's it. But that's not how the world turns, isn't it? We need to be able to go out there and talk to those who do not want to hear about science. We need to talk to them, and we need to explain to them what is science, and we need to say that in a language that they understand. And usually the language that other non-scientific people understand is the money language. And that's why I've said highlight the economic benefits of it. And use evidence. Somebody who would like the numbers, for example, an accountant, if you give him economic benefits and you back it up by evidence which is also numerical, he is more likely to believe that what you're saying is right than just giving him a qualitative analysis of something. Establish partnership. If we want to promote, I'm nearly talking about a marketing strategy here. If we want to promote STEM, we cannot do this alone. We've been trying to do this. The scientific community have been trying to promote science, STEM on our own for far too long, and we've not had the results that we wanted. I think we need to be strategic about it, and strategic about it means going out there and showing what are we bringing to the table, how or what are we contributing to the sector. Then organize in terms of campaigns, in terms of awareness session, to highlight the importance, to highlight the outputs of STEM. And whom do you think should be the target audience of this educate, establish, and organize? The policymakers. Because right now, I'm saying this because I'm from the ministry and I can see that happening. There is so much of poor understanding of what science is all about. The general feeling when you say science to a non-scientific person is must be something in a lab with some creepy, something growing on a platted dish or something not very, must be poisonous or must be toxic. But it's not like that, isn't it? We all know that it is not like that. STEM is much, much broader than this. And we need to showcase this. And this is not happening, I think. Similarly, and we are just out, I added this slide last night because we are just out of the budget in Mauritius, happened last week. And as usual, we were disappointed of not having been given the right amount of money to do research and to promote STEM, etc., etc. Though, and I have to say this loud and clear and proudly, we have been given money to set up a local chapter of the Women in STEM organization, which is one of the organization under SADC, which is wonderful, I think, wonderful news. But we need also to be able to promote STEM education to finance cadres, to the guys who knows the numbers and do not care about anything else, because that's their job. Nothing wrong, no offense to them, but they need to make numbers match. And we need to show them that if we are telling them, invest in me, invest in STEM, what is the return on investment that I'm giving back to you? If I say this to a finance person, they will be interested to hear me more because now I'm talking their language. Investment, return on investment. One, highlight the economic impact of STEM. This is going to be one of our chapter of the national STEM strategy. The economic impact of STEM, showcase a couple of success stories, what has been happening, what are the projects that are STEM related and how did they contribute to society? How did research improve the quality of life? Number of things happening. I will take a simple one, and I'm taking this example because I met the gentleman this morning when coming here. There was a person, let's not name names. I met, there was somebody who was doing research on tea, I think, on black tea. And that's why I'm not going to run. Then they'll say I'm doing marketing for him on black tea. But this was recognized at international level, and this was taken on board and put as a label on some by some tea factory company, and is being sold. And the health benefit of it has been proven over time. Of course, there are some caveats that you should not let your tea brew for more than 3 minutes. It has to be between 3 and 5 minutes, and the temperature has to be controlled. But then there is benefit out of it. Data, numbers. If you want to talk and if you want to promote science, STEM, we need to be able to show how we are contributing to economic growth, but also to savings. Savings in terms of operation cost, in terms of information cost. How that by using technology, if I use technology, we can save time, processing time. And that is useful time that can be put to better use to improve productivity. And this right now, we do not have any data to prove it. All we have is if we use IT, we're going to reduce the processing time by 50%. What is the evidence? I've not seen, I've been looking. If any of you have, I'll be delighted to have a link to any research paper done or any research done on any of these topics where we can link economic savings or economic growth, whichever, to STEM, direct links. And of course, the last one there cannot be seen by the people in the room, but the emphasis is what STEM can do for society as well. If we need to get students, if we need to get future employees or even future employers who are ready for the world of work, it needs to be through STEM because of the VUCA world in which we're living right now. Therefore, end note, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I've not gone beyond time. No, I'm not gone beyond time. On time. End note is promoting science right now should no longer be about using the traditional method that we had, but rather should be about really creating a marketing plan using non-STEM topics, marketing, oral communication, short videos, strategic plan, data-driven evidence, data-driven proposal or data-driven presentations. And all of this because we are right now at a phase where we can no longer say, let's try to make STEM a reality. We are now in a phase, and I think it is a duty of care for all of us, that we should say we must ensure that STEM progresses and fast so that we are within what is expected of our youth. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm just on time. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Kiran Bhajan, for this inspiring keynote and putting us in the context for today's session, which is more or less on STEM education and STEM research. So we open the floor for questions. I have Dr. Narod, you've raised your hand. Okay, we'll take questions from our friends.
Yes, I have raised my hand. Yes.
So we keep you in the lobby for the time being. We go
Okay,
to
I'll be here.
international. Sorry. Okay, yeah. So we'll take questions from colleagues from Mumbai. I check the chat.
You have the mic.
I'm inviting questions from our colleagues from Mumbai, please. Any
Am I
questions?
audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
So put your question, introduce yourself first, and then your question. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Narendra. Thank you, Professor Kiran, for very informative talk. I would like to understand your views on teacher education. What changes you are expected for this same education in the context of whatever the model framework you have just now shared? What things you are expected from teacher education, and what should be the policy at a national level? Because now even in India also we have a national education policy 2020, and in Mauritius also you have a new education policy. Do you think that these policies will fulfill the need of the STEM, the model, the framework which you have shared?
Thank you. Thank you. Am I audible to you if I talk from here?
You're audible.
All right. Thank you very much for this question. I think this is one of the elements that I purposely left out of the presentation, knowing that there will be a question on this. I think the current model is not is not the perfect one, my personal opinion, because what we have, and I'm taking the Mauritian context, we have a curriculum that is changed every 7 years or 8 years, I think. And what we are saying is that we are going for 7, 8 years to use the same kind of pedagogy, the same kind of examples, the same kind of teaching methods to students who are every day faced with changes in technology. So is the teacher training model the right one? I think no. I think it deserves to be reviewed and reviewed quickly. If it can be done every year, it will be, delightful. If it can be done quicker than that, that will be ideal. I don't know whether it can be done every 6 months, but changes is one, not just in the content, but also changes in the way that teaching is done. If you look at the younger generation, the alpha generation, the one that are just born, they are what I call the click generation, the one that do not have a lot of patience, that want everything quickly, whose action span has been compared to the length of a TikTok video. So if you have this kind of audience, how do you change the way that you teach so that you keep their attention and their focus on the teaching? So I think there's a need to change and create more of hands-on and getting them back to the basics of trying, of testing. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran. Anyone from Mumbai?
Dr. Roselle.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
My name-
Introduce yourself.
My name is Roselle, and I liked what Dr. Kiran said, that COVID changed. We blame COVID for many things, but COVID also showed us how important technology is and how the importance of technology is integral to our education. And something that just picking up from the question that Narendra asked, I feel that teacher education needs to be revamped, and like Dr. Kiran said, you have to keep on changing to adapt to the times. I wonder whether, the government of Mauritius is thinking, I know in India they've introduced the NEP, but there is always a culture change that needs to accompany any new innovation that comes in for it to be absorbed well. How do we work as educators or as leading thinkers in the field of education to facilitate these things so that they just don't remain on paper, they become an actual and tangible reality, and also that they are authentic in whatever changes we are trying to make?
Thank you. And indeed, you're very right. And the good thing for us, Mauritius, is that this year, 2024, is the year of the planned review of the curriculum. And what has already changed is that, at least from my perspective, from the higher education sector, we have insisted that higher education be part of the curriculum review panel. Why? Because we expect that this panel would be able to come out with recommendations to the policymakers. That's why I had a slide on policymakers, to make them understand that there is need to invest in continuous and a constant review of the program. Of course, we understand that it cannot be reviewed every month because there's a curriculum and there's an assessment at the end of it, but it has to be reviewed sufficiently quickly, enough that we do not lose out on basic knowledge to be imparted. I cannot give you a recommendation now because this is the work that this committee will come out with, and we expect to have some very pertinent and forward-looking recommendations from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran. I will now take question from Mauritian. How many more time we have for? 5 minutes. Okay, we'll take question from Fozia online, then I'll come to Shobha and Shakil. You have a question as well. So many questions, Kiran. So let's. So please, Fozia, be brief in your question so that you get a brief answer. Thank you. Very brief.
Thank you very much, Professor Bajan, for this presentation. In fact, I have really no question, but I have very interesting comments that I would like to make. First of all, I will start with the last first. Based on your framework, I really appreciate the thinking that has gone into this framework. But I'm also thinking that when we talk about education, you may also think about including pre-primary as well, because early childhood, we say it is a starting point. Maybe that is one point that can be considered in the framework. Secondly, regarding higher education and STEM, I would like to share with you, recently we have a research on higher education students and STEM education. One of the very interesting finding was that the most appropriate space for interdisciplinary learning for the STEM students was their undergraduate research. So this is very important. So their research, that final project, is important as it provides that scope for interdisciplinary learning according to the findings of the study. The third comment and last one, of course, for me is
thank you.
regarding primary education. So I really seize this opportunity as a platform to talk about something that we have been discussing at the MIE as a teacher education institution and also responsible for curriculum development, is that at the early childhood level, we have an interesting curriculum which takes into consideration science education and STEM for the early childhood. Unfortunately, there is a gap between the early childhood and the third year of primary. So we don't have actually a proper science curriculum or science textbook in grades 1 and 2. I think this is a gap. That's something we can reflect upon to ensure continuity between early childhood education and the primary education, the first and second year. Thank you again,
Thank you,
Professor
Fozia.
Jan, for these insights. Thank you very
Shobha.
much.
Thank you, Fozia. Shobha, yeah. Coming here takes time, so please leave it, Shobha.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Jawaya from the University of Mauritius. I'm from the Department of Biosciences and Ocean Studies. My comments is that, well, technology is a big tool, a powerful tool, and we have to be very careful how we're using it. Well, regarding promoting STEM, it's good to have technology, but it all starts connecting with nature, observing, and using tools to enhance all of our observation. We don't wait to explain accountants or how science is important. We started since they're kids. I'm not too for forcing students to study science in pre-primary, primary, but help them interact with nature, ask questions, don't buffer their critical analysis, encourage them. They're very curious, encourage this curiosity. All this has to be worked on. Now, technology is very powerful. We're using it at the university. However, we should not use it to make the mind lazy. We have to use it to help us save time and to enhance productivity and not to replace critical thinking. And when everything gets lazy in the future generations, I don't know what will happen. So technology is very important. And one thing I'm missing there, I'm in the field of agriculture. Well, it's good to have big money. It's good to have big technology. For COVID, we saw no food, no vegetables. So we have to promote all of this, enhanced by mechanical things. So, yeah,
Thank you, Shobha.
And just a comment, because it was not a question. That's why you will see that, at least for a country like Mauritius, smart agriculture is very much an in-demand sector of development. Because, just like you said, we need to promote.
It is it is happening, the development of smart agriculture. Jacqueline Saucier is working on that. Shakil, you have a question? You come here so that.
Okay.
You have. Okay.
Moving there, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
So my question is simple and clear, I think clear enough. Where does Mauritius position itself among other African countries in terms of STEM policy and strategic framework?
It depends if you want me to give you a political answer or a
real one.
A real one. Mauritius is ranked 54, I think, on the Global Innovation Index. and first in Africa. That was last year. The year before, we were 45th and still first in Africa. So where do we stand with respect to Africa? I think we stand very high up the ladder. I'm being humble not to say we are first on the list. But does that mean that we should stop? No. So we are we're high up when we compare ourselves with African countries, but that is one benchmark. There are other benchmarks. We should also say, where do we stand with respect to the Indian Ocean Rim? Because we are a member of the Indian Ocean Rim, and then we are no longer first. How do we keep improving? The whole purpose is not to be first. The whole purpose is to keep improving enough that we create economic growth and that we create better citizens for tomorrow. I think that's what we should aim.
No
Thank
further
you very
question
much.
from you. Thank you, Shakil.
Thank
Yes,
you,
Mark.
Dr. Bajan. I know we are short of time. Hopefully, we have tea soon after, so I can intervene. And I couldn't not intervene because I invited Professor Bajan to deliver this interesting keynote address, and I believe that the audience really appreciated that, and me too. I would like just to ask a question, because for me, science is my baby, I would say. STEM, more so STEM, because when I look at physics, though I'm a physicist, I look at physics, for me, it's not physics that keeps on roving in my mind, but the whole science stuff, science, technology, maths, etc. That's why you have had a number of discussions with my colleague Ajit Boloa. Quite a number of colleagues recently we were in Rodrigues conducting a workshop on critical thinking. And we had a discussion prior to stepping in that workshop about the integration between science and maths. For me, when I see science, I see the maths, I see the English, the language, everything together. So if we're talking about STEM, the terminology of STEM, rather than saying science, physics, maths, chemistry, or biology or technology, the more we use the terminology of STEM, for me, it's that interdisciplinary. So at the policy level, will the ministry eventually, I'm not saying tomorrow or in the future, come up with that notion of STEM teaching for us, for MIE, so teacher education, needs to adopt that integrated approach. So when we are teaching science, the maths is there, the language is there, the technology is there, engineering is there.
Thank you, Yashwant. Excuse me,
yes,
Professor
yes.
Bajan. I will add to it. My question was I would have used my prerogative as chair to ask you this question, but he has already taken my question. Because adding to what Professor Anna mentioned, my point would have been, it demands you use that word, revamping the curriculum, the teacher education program. We have to rethink the way we do things. It's not business as usual. Let us put it in a simple term. No business as usual. So it demands the blurring of knowledge structures, which of physics, of chemistry, of biology, of technology, so how far government or the Ministry of Education, where you are a director for tertiary education, is ready to revamp their thinking so that we can do the things we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Anwar. I knew you would have kept that pinching question for the last. The answer is a lot is being done already, because government is planning to set up a complete different directorate for science and technology. Currently, as director of tertiary education, I'm looking at science and technology as well. But they want this to be a complete separate one, and that would be the directorate that will implement the framework and the National Higher Education Science and Technology Strategy. And the good thing again there is that it is not for any sector, it is for all sectors.
Yeah.
It cuts across, and hopefully I will be invited in the curriculum development review panel.
Shobha is here from University of Mauritius. I'm expecting universities to break down those faculties so that to make STEM in action. So before I take yours, any question from Mumbai? Okay. No? So we have a very short question for a brief answer because we are already ahead.
Minor suggestion.
You okay?
The framework is very interesting. Perhaps can you consider including the Tibet sector also?
Oh, yeah, it's
I've written it as others
Yeah, okay.
because I did not want to say Tibet. I wanted to write others because in the others I had included the pre-primary, the Tibet, the SEND, the special education needs, because everybody together is what makes that research, that STEM.
It's included now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. So we've reached at the end of this keynote session. Professor Kiran Bhajan, thank you very much for this inspiring keynote. And I think you have illuminate the mind so that we become more STEM focused. Thank you very much indeed. So we are breaking for tea. I don't know, and Mumbai, they are having tea as well? Yeah. Okay.
Just make an announcement.
Okay, I'll hand over to Professor Rama. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor Bhajan. I just make a short announcement because yesterday we had a constraint. We learned about a constraint where we were supposed to be having a guest speaker, Professor Daniel Como Gagumba, in the afternoon, but unfortunately he would be taken up and he has kindly requested to change. Sorry, he was supposed to have it immediately after this presentation. But unfortunately, we push it a bit later. So we are supposed to be having the power presentation at 10 o'clock, starting at 10 o'clock. So I hope that all the participants are here or online, but we will have to start with the power with the presentation soon after tea break at 10 o'clock. Thank you. So we'll break for tea.
10 o'clock Mauritian time.
Yeah, Mauritian time. Yes. Thank you. So we'll meet at 10 o'clock for Mauritius, and for Mumbai, it will be 11:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait.
Okay.